CreepGeeks podcast is an offbeat news podcast that takes a lighthearted approach to the paranormal, cryptid, strange, the silly, and trending tech topics circulating the web, broadcasting paranormal news and fun stories from their underground bunker in the mountains of western North Carolina.
Hello and welcome to the CreepGeeks podcast. This is our episode number 200.
Utah Monolith gone but not forgotten, Chupacabra comeback, and our contest question.
Yeah. So it begins again. Welcome to the CreepGeeks podcast. As we said before, this episode number 200. That means we've tried this 200 times, and maybe we'll get it right. It's just kind of a thing.
Okay.
Okay, so before we roll into the podcast, let's take a second and thank Adam.
Yes.
For the and he's from in.pencil for our What It's All About intro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what we're about. And so pretty much, let's do this. Let's just, in.pencil is his podcast, and we have some information, and we'd like you to go check out his podcast. And pretty much his podcast is basically a conversational podcast about life, death, science, religion, music, politics, technology, and the paranormal.
Yeah. By
Jess and Adam. And it's a podcast on Anchor. We have links in our show notes, so you can definitely check it out. And take a second and do so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you keep looking at me?
Oh, no reason.
You got to speak into the microphone. You're like looking at me.
Well,
makes me feel
thinking about
do I have any stuffing on my face? Any mashed potatoes from the Turkey Day fallout?
I was thinking about one of their previous podcast episodes where I think they were doing a run through of some classic video games and stuff like that.
See,
yeah,
your classic video games are not my classic video games because
Okay.
I'm old. So, yeah.
But definitely give them a listen. And like Greg said, you can find them on Anchor. And we have a link to their podcast in the show notes.
And a website.
Yep.
So check them out. And if you want to do our intro, you can certainly do that. You can attach it and send it via email. You can call our number. We have a toll-free number where you can call and share things that you'd like us to talk about, or if you want to do the intro.
Yep, and that's going to be 575-208-4025.
Yeah, if you leave it as a voicemail, I'll drop it in there. Or if you want to send it as a MP3, you can do that too. Whatever you want to do, that'd be great.
You can also, and if you wanted to email it, it's going to be contact@creepgeeks.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice. So let's thank our Patreon supporters.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be Dave, Adam, Isis, James, Bobby, John, and John.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you say Adam?
Yes, I did. You talked over me when I
Actually, I'm adjusting my headphones.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they feel weird.
Well.
Yeah.
And if you...
I probably have them on backwards. You know what I mean? Because like you have the L for the left side, R for the right side, and I didn't check before I put them on. Or my head's misshapen. It could be a little combination of both there.
Guys, support us on Patreon, and we can do whole episodes about adjusting microphones and headphones and all the wonderful behind-the-scenes Creep Geek stuff.
Yeah.
So, but again, that's going to be Dave, Adam, Isis, James, Bobby, John, and John. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you guys want to support us, that's going to be patreon.com/CreepGeeks.
Yep.
And
it's a place where you can find where we do post extra content, and like I've been uploading some pictures from our trips and stuff like that.
Yeah. Like
we have other videos and stuff. And when we do podcast over there, it's pretty much a little bit different than we do podcast here.
Yeah.
They may even have some bad words.
Right. Or like Greg's been working on behind the scenes footage from places like Point Pleasant. Yeah.
What did you say? Point Pleasant.
Well, and we have some other stuff that we have planned.
Yeah, Flatwood. It's pretty much. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff, and it's just kind of weird because a lot of stuff that's happened for us the beginning of the year and the whole broken neck thing and all that sort of put us behind, and in 2020, and then it's just been it seems like everybody's either behind the eight ball or way ahead.
Yeah.
Either way, We got stuff for you. So, and speaking of stuff, let's talk about this stuff. Okay, so our last podcast episode, we talked about the Utah Monolith. Right?
Yes.
So, I don't know. I've seen that somewhere where somebody called it Utah instead of Utah.
Yeah.
So we talk about this monument that showed up, and people were kind of freaked out about it. And you know, the Bureau of Land Management and National Parks were like saying, don't go to the monument because you may get stranded. Mm-hmm. Well, evidently, it's gone now.
Well, that didn't take long.
No.
Especially when all the articles and, like you're saying, NPS and BLM, they were all like, it's very remote. It's hard to get to. Be careful. You shouldn't go out there. And literally, as soon as the stories broke that, you know, Google Earth had found the location, all that other stuff, within days it's now gone.
Yeah, pretty much. And so I don't think it was as far out and as remote as what they were saying. So we have an article here, and it basically says, in the latest twist of the mysterious monolith story in Utah, the shiny metallic object has disappeared. Right? Yeah. And the Bureau of Land Management reports that it was removed by an unknown party. This is the stuff that tries to make a sort of a boring, nondescript sort of matter-of-fact statement into something more than what it really is.
There's a lot of air quotes.
Unknown, yeah. A lot of, removed by an unknown party. Adding that the structure has received international and national attention, and we receive reports that a person or group removed it in the evening, basically 27th of November.
Oh, so Friday night.
Yeah, pretty much. The curious structure, which has been compared to the monolith, in 2001 Space Odyssey, you started to get the visitors like we were talking about.
Yeah.
And adventurers were going in the Red Rock Desert. And two of them, Ricardo Marino and Sierra Van Meter.
That's a pretty cool name.
But
Sierra Van Meter.
I like Ricardo Marino. I am Ricardo Marino. This is my compadre, Sierra Van Meter.
Yeah, she sounds like
those are fake names.
She probably runs a festival out in the desert. That's why they know how to get out there.
Like, you run a festival. Hey, yes. This I don't know why, but this reminds me of Jumanji. The names.
It reminds me of a very illegal off the books Coachella. That's what it reminds me of.
Oh, like fire.
Like Burning Man.
Yeah. Red Desert Fire Festival, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so they were perhaps the first to discover that the monolith had basically vanished, right? Mm-hmm. And they shared some details on the Instagrams. And what they said was they seen a truck driving away with a large object in its bed.
Oh.
Yeah. And so some have speculated that the monolith was a piece of sculpture done by the late artist John McCracken. And it's because it kind of looks or is sort of similar to his other plank stainless steel works that he done.
Yeah.
And his gallery confirmed that it was his at first, right? But now they say otherwise. And they're saying that maybe somebody was just paying homage to McCracken. So why would they say it was his and then say, oh, maybe not? Maybe because somebody's like, hey, we might have to pay. You know what I mean? There might be some kind of like federal fees involved here, fines or something. So,
well, I mean, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't claim it until I knew for sure if, there was going to get in trouble.
Well, Bureau of Land Management, and this is an interesting fact, is meant for and is intended for public enjoyment. So free use art installations a lot of times can fall under BLM, Bureau of Land Management territory. So if you were to install a true art piece, there's very few fines and penalties. However, if it falls under NPS or FSWS, which is, I guess, basically Fish and Game or Forest Service type stuff, you will face a penalty because it's nationally protected.
Yeah. Well, I would assume that you'd have to have some kind of permission first.
True.
So, and we're not saying go out and,
start putting sculptures up on Bureau of Land Management territory.
If that happens and they're like, well, I heard it on this podcast and they start calling us, we're like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Who?
Yeah. We don't do a podcast.
Who's Utah?
Yeah. What's an Utah? Yeah.
But it was funny. Like once the CNN story kind of broke that, this is when this thing probably appeared and all this other stuff, within days, suddenly it's, the tide turned so quickly on this one from.
Yeah, well, it wasn't going to last. I mean, it's where it is, people just looking for something to do. And I think that's pretty much what happened to Ricardo Marino and Sierra Van Meter.
Yeah.
They're like, let's go check it out.
I mean,
I would if we were close. You know, if you were like, let's drive 12 hours to go see a stainless steel hunk of stuff in the desert, I'm saying no.
But I had a theory.
Because you know what would happen? We would get there and it would be gone.
Here's the thing. I have a theory though.
And I'd be mad.
This showed up in Canyonlands National Park, right?
Yeah.
And it showed up in an area where, yes, it's remote. Yes, there's some trekking involved, but there are pictures out there on social media of this very scenic area. I would not be surprised if one of these sculptures, which is definitely not alien in origin, shows up someplace like Bisty or Multnomah Falls or someplace else because of what it is, because it seems so ominous. I think this might be...
I don't think it's ominous. It's just stainless steel.
I know, but it looked all sci-fi. Everybody kept attributing it to like the Space Odyssey stuff, you know?
Yeah, but I think that was more ominous because it was black.
What if kind of like
black granite looking kind of a...
What if kind of like the vandalism that was happening a couple of years ago, this is the new thing to install random art, almost like Joshua Tree style, you know?
Yeah, I think if it was an art installation, though, it wouldn't have been installed, like, cut into the ground.
Yeah.
So...
Which was also our same argument why it wasn't alien in nature, is because it was cut into the ground.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, if you're an alien and you can fly across the galaxy and stuff, you think you can't put a hunk of steel.
Or as like this one comment I think I saw on somebody's thread, it was like, aliens would weld better joins than that.
Yeah. I don't know. I like the idea that it was used in some kind of movie or a prop or something like that, or you know, but. I don't know. It's just kind of, and you know, who knows? And they really don't know how long it's been there.
Yeah.
Until the helicopter guys were flying over and they seen it. So it just kind of is what it is. So it's something that could have been pretty interesting. You think if it had been, maybe the people that took it are the same ones who put it there.
Which would be cool. Because
and they're like, we probably should go get that man because if we get fined.
What if they decide to put it someplace else? Like I'm holding on to that. I really want to see it reappear someplace. So if they came back, got it, and decided to hide it or put it someplace else. Yeah.
But one of the comments I read was, damn scrappers. You know, because they were showing up. It's like they're going to take it. Because whenever somebody puts something, quote, like they have obviously had some kind of interaction with scrappers. You know, like it just like, I don't know. And for those of you who don't know, in some places that have like a pretty healthy recycling type thing, there are people that will basically steal the copper out of your walls. They'll steal the air conditioner off your house, whatever, man, to go turn it in for scrap metal, you know, like a precious metal type thing or something, to get money.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're doing that to get money to buy, you know, alcohol, booze, whatever. 2020 probably trying to buy some food, cough medicine, who knows, man.
Oh, funny story about that. Yeah. So, you know, the copper and the scrappers reminded me this week I saw somebody had a really remote cabin out kind of near Adams, Tennessee, which we just talked about for the Bell Witch. And they found this cabin on some property that's for sale, but they went inside the cabin. It was in really rough shape, and somebody was putting X's on the cabin walls. And everybody's like, what do you think it means? Does it mean it's a cursed cabin? And everybody's, because it was in a paranormal group.
Right.
Until one dude's like, no, it was where scrappers marked which walls have the copper inside them. So it's
like water
so they
pipes
can,
and stuff.
Yeah, so they can come back and steal all the metal.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before in our past 200 plus episodes, because, well, 200 episodes is like, we talked about the guy who actually lived in Portsmouth, Virginia, who got woken up by the code enforcement people because he had to have siding on his house. And he's like, what are you talking about? I have siding on my house? And they're like, no, you don't. And he's like, yes, I do. And he got up, and the code enforcement person walked him around the corner, and the entire side of his house, all the aluminum siding was gone.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And you know, so they were like, well, when's the last time you had siding? He's like, as far as I knew, it was still there. So he had no idea how long it had been gone. And then there was the instance where we lived into it. We moved into a place, and, you know, the air conditioner was just stolen off the house. They get the copper and all that stuff. Remember that?
Yeah, the day we moved in.
Yeah, because we turned the AC on, didn't do anything. It was hot.
Yeah.
And we go and look, and it's like, huh. There was just a cable stick, the big old cable, like sticking out of the wall, you know, on the outside with a little air, you know, the air handler unit or whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
Or the condenser, I don't know. Was not there. And, you know, we did. We went on vacation.
Yeah.
We're like, it's hot. Let's go here where there's air conditioning.
Well, see, your dad actually helped us move, and he went
Well, yeah,
out
he's the
to
one that pointed it out.
troubleshoot.
He's like, come here.
He's like, come.
He's like, tell me why your AC doesn't work. And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, you see that thing sticking out of the wall, that big cable? He's like, yeah. He's like, it's supposed to be connected to your AC.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that sucks. So he had to call Larry, the landlord. He's like, hey, Larry. And then, the weird thing is that he contacted the insurance company, and the insurance company didn't want a police report or anything. It happens all the time. They're like, yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's nuts. So anyway.
So if you find our old AC out in the middle of the desert.
Keep it. It's like 10 years old, and it's been paid for or whatever.
Take a picture of it and put it on
So
Instagram.
people do that. They scrap it. They'll get the aluminum, they'll get all that stuff, and they'll go turn it in for some monies.
Yeah.
So I just think that was funny. That was like one of the first comments. Scrappers.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
I don't know.
So speaking of scrapping, let's talk about this. Ready?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit about why I'm probably not as respectful towards the Chupacabra
Yeah.
as some people are. Because to me, the Chupacabra is kind of like the jackalope.
Well,
No, it is.
I agree.
When was it first seen? The Chupacabra, do you know?
No.
It was like in Puerto Rico in 1995.
Okay.
And, since then, it's magically sort of shown up here in, the Southwest, all the way into Mexico and further down. So the Chupacabra is one of those things where I'm not sure I'm a big fan of Chupacabra because it seems to, the narrative or the descriptions, the entire thing has sort of changed in its opinions on what it is.
And it's modeled, it has kind of like gotten very murky, especially the original reports from Puerto Rico as they translate to the United States sightings.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Okay, so it's entirely possible that there's way more to this, and it's sort of the whole thing is becoming obfusc. How do you say it? I can't even say it.
Obscured?
No, I could say obscured.
Obfuscated?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what you can. I don't know what you can say.
Well, no, I couldn't say. I can't even say it. How do you say it?
Obfuscated.
Yeah.
Obfuscated.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. All right.
But
when you look at the artist renditions of the Chupacabra, right, and what it looks like in Puerto Rico, it looks almost like an alien or reptilian type small creature. About 4 foot tall or so, big fangs. It looks kind of like has the big round head, scales.
Yeah,
possibly
like a reptilian
claws,
goblin. Yeah.
/ mixed with an alien with the big eyes and stuff, and big round head, right? So, it's literally goat sucker from Spanish, right? From chupar, which means to suck, and in cabras, which means goats. So it's goat sucker. And it started reportedly around 1995 in Puerto Rico. And the name comes from the animal's reported vampirism because it sucks the blood of the chupacabra. So it said to attack and drink the blood of livestock, including goats. And so what I don't like is the physical descriptions really vary. It could be a heavy creature the size of a small bear with a row of spines going down its back to the base of its tail. Sometimes it doesn't have a tail. And it's like, so eyewitness sightings have been claimed in Puerto Rico and have since been reported as far as Maine, Chile, Russia, Philippines, right? The Southwest into Mexico, like Texas and Mexico, and I think in New Mexico there was one.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's sort of this wide-reaching thing now all of a sudden. The descriptions are different. Like in the Southwest or in America, let's just say, or the North American continent, I guess, the descriptions are more like a dog kind of looking thing,
Yeah.
with, the same things, the mottled skin and the big fangs and big eyes and all that crazy stuff. And people think it's Chupacabra, and normally it's like a fox with mange or a dog with mange or something
Coyote
crazy.
With mange.
Coyote with mange. Yeah. Something with mange where it doesn't have any hair and the skin's all jacked up.
Yeah.
So, it first started 8 sheep were dead, 3 puncture wounds in the chest area and all this crazy stuff. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
But that's really about it.
And
I mean, so, there's books out like in 2011 tracking the Chupacabra. But there's not really anything sort of more than that. It's like the blood was extracted. I don't.
And see, that's the thing. Like, this article is basically about the new sightings or new incidents happening out in California, I guess, or in Silicon Valley. But every single bit of evidence or reports we get all seem to be anecdotal or a dead creature. And I'm not buying what they're selling.
Yeah.
So.
And people were saying, well, could be dogs, may not be dogs. And it's like, dogs and coyotes can kill and not consume their prey. And they're saying, well, that's because maybe the dog's not experienced. It's just, it seems, now I'm not discounting that something didn't happen. There's when you got like 2 holes in the neck and there's no blood, something happened, right? Yeah. But I just don't know if the description they're using, everywhere if it has sharp spines or quills, leathery or scalish, greenish gray skin. I don't know. About the size of a kangaroo, can kind of look like a kangaroo. And it's so far out there and so far different. It's like, okay, typically, like, let's talk about like Bigfoot, Sasquatch and skunk apes and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They have a bunch of reported sightings and they have descriptions. And in some places you don't hear really of any other different type of description than like skunk ape. It has like 3 toes or 4 toes. There's some differences that are reported continuously when these sightings actually get reported. Like when we were talking to the guys, the Kentucky. Remember when we were talking about talking to the what are they called? The big Bigfoot hunters in Kentucky.
BFRO or no?
No, they were. I think Kentucky Headhunter. No, Mountain Hunter. Man, I can't think. But when we talked to those guys, they said that the Sasquatch that they see are very large.
Yeah.
They're not like skunk apes, which typically aren't nearly as large. He's like, these things are like 10, 12 feet tall, and they can, huge, like cast feet prints and stuff. And that's the description for that area of what they see all the time. Mm-hmm. And if it's small, it's like a kid.
Yeah.
A baby Sasquatch. A youngling. I don't know if you can call them youngling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you read about the Chupacabra, it's kind of like there's not enough, I think, to sort of...
There's no uniform descriptors, or
yeah, but there's not enough tangibility to make it anything more than sort of a happenstance. Like every once in a while you see a video and they're like, "Oh man, it's Chupacabra," and it's just a dog running down the street
with really bad mange.
Yeah, and, or somebody hits one with a car, and every so often there's a a thing because you can't really tell what it is, and it's sort of dried up and emaciated and sort of bummified, and they finally go, "Oh yeah, it's Chupacabra." I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is just used to describe, attacks on livestock,
So is that the determination for making, is that the determination for the Chupacabra label, is thing that attacks livestock?
Yeah.
Like in this article, because they're talking about Silicon Valley and how, I guess, there's mysterious deaths of 12 goats in this area of Los Gatos.
Yeah, and see, that's the point I was getting to. It's kind of like, the only thing they're using is, the only common thing is that it attacks livestock.
Yeah.
And the descriptions are different. And then here you go with the Silicon Valley sort of incident, which is weird because of where this is happening is more less desert sort of farmland type stuff. It's in where is it exactly?
It's Santa Clara County in the foothills of the Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
So that's more, like you were saying, it's more agrarian, more farmy type area than it is desert,
Yeah. Which would probably make better sense if you're a Chupacabra out there. You want to go somewhere that's got some nice grass to lay in or whatever.
But I guess, like, the goat herds are an environmentally friendly way to keep brush and wild grasses trimmed.
Yeah, you can, like, rent goats, and you can put them on your land, and they'll eat up all that stuff, like kudzu. All sorts of crazy stuff is what they do out here. Which is
a TikTok rabbit hole you fell in, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But earlier this year, a herd of about 200 goats broke free from a fenced-in area nearby San Jose and stampeded through a town before being rounded up and led home by their owner.
Yeah.
So, like this article says, sounds like heaven on earth for a Chupacabra, right? Well, if the main points of this article are the fact that 12 goats are now dead and there's this overabundance of a certain type of wildlife, my first thought isn't Chupacabra. My first thought is a coyote or coyotes, which are very common in the West.
Coyote.
And that overabundance of easy pickings, you're probably going to have so much population and so many coyote attacks that some coyotes may get kicked out of their pack. They might start getting mangy looking and they might die, and there goes your Chupacabra evidence.
Yeah.
You know? That mangy looking, weird skeletal body that gets found is nothing more than a coyote. Yeah,
and so the article we're talking about is the one that says mysterious goat killings in Silicon Valley, and it says Chupacabras. Mm-hmm. And it's by Paul Seaburn. And this caught my attention because I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things where I don't really know what the deal is with Chupacabra. It's kind of like, to me, it's in the same category as jackalope.
Yeah.
I guess. But when I see it, I'm going to read it and say, oh, maybe there's more to it. And so what he says is when a news story of mysterious animal killings hits the media and a certain blood-sucking cryptid is blamed, fans of the true Chupacabras are always quick to point out that the legendary creature lives primarily in Puerto Rico, not Texas or anywhere else, and it looks more like a small, upright, walking lizardous monster, not a mangy dog, and prefers goats. That's why they call it Chupacabra, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the story from Silicon Valley that it involves mysterious goat deaths caused by something other than a skinny, hairless dog. So this sighting, if it's not the skinny, hairless dog, would go more towards the original sort of descriptor probably of what a Chupacabra from Puerto Rico is, right?
Yeah.
Which would be unusual.
But there's no actual sighting. It's just a letter.
Yeah.
And it's just, Dear Joan, 3 neighbors nearby here in Lexington Hills have had their goat herds slaughtered at night in the last month by mountain lions. That amounts to 12 goats, none of which were eaten. I didn't even think of mountain lions, which, I have family stationed in California, and they visit a friend who has a mountain lion problem.
Yeah, well, mountain lions are a problem.
Yeah, so mountain lions are coyotes, not Chupacabra. There's nothing in this report that actually...
Yeah, and the report doesn't say they were drained of blood,
yeah,
which is supposed to be the number one Chupacabra indicator. No reported footprints, no lizard's feet prints, nothing like that, nothing on security cameras or anything.
Yeah.
So it just makes me wonder why, in this instance, and other instances we hear where there's any kind of livestock mutilation, and it's something like goats or whatever, they instantly go to Chupacabra instead of something else,
Well, and to go back to that presentation we did once, that New Mexico weird presentation we did, where I showed the Chupacabra body trapped in the power lines.
Yeah.
That was not it. In fact, one of my friends, the reason I put that in our New Mexico weird talk was because the thing my friend posted was, oh my God, this is a Chupacabra body trapped in a power line. How does this even get here? Was it dropped by aliens? And somebody who had worked for the National Parks and Forest Service, because they were a ranger, actually commented, no, the winds here in New Mexico are so high and so harsh that first, the winds dehydrate the bodies down to almost nothing. And if it's a coyote or a fox, it has lighter weight bones. So it dries the body and mummifies it up super quick, and now you have a lightweight carcass. The winds in New Mexico, which hit 70 miles an hour sometimes on a Tuesday, blew this
sustained for a while too.
Have the ability to pick up this carcass and literally blow it into the low-laying power lines that stretched. They lay low because they stretch so far.
Yeah.
So it was nothing more than a very mummified corpse or body or whatever that had blown into the power lines.
Yeah.
Which is very unsupernatural and very unparanormal, but it's true, and it's science, and it's just as weird and interesting.
And so it's kind of a weird idea. It's like, okay, well, we've talked about little people in the past and the idea of, goblins and that sort of thing. And then in the Southwest, there's all like small creature type things, Mm-hmm. And then there's just general weirdness and stuff. So it's like, when I see articles like this, I always read them and I'm like, man, this is pretty cool. Maybe there'd be something. And sometimes there's not. And then you start sort of thinking about things that it could be. And it's just kind of want more. But I just think it's kind of strange that there's always that sort of instance or inference to like, oh, that's got to be Chupacabra. And anything small, it seems, it takes out something else that's kind of small. And you're like, well, probably not a Bigfoot. Hey, he's too big. What's he going to do to the goat? But there has been reports, and I think even Mysterious Universe had one of their podcasts a long time ago talked about somebody seen a Bigfoot running through the woods with a pig under one arm,
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, I don't know. I don't know. It's just, I seen it and I figured we should talk about it because who knows? It is what it is. And it just seemed like this was kind of the story itself. I liked the whole sort of outcome of the story is a little bit of a letdown. The Utah Monument, a little bit of a letdown.
Well, my biggest thing with the Chupacabra, especially here in the United States, is it's so associated with the Southwest, much like the jackalope, which is completely made up. But there are so many other things weird about the Southwest and weird in general that it could be, you could shine a light on instead of focusing on.
Well, and see, and that's kind of part of what I was thinking about. It's like, okay, why? I guess what we're looking at, well, all these television shows that are out there, they only sort of really talk about the most popular ones. Mm-hmm. Which makes sense because you want people to watch whatever. But there's so much other stuff out there. The possibility of something being out there that needs more attention shined to it, right?
Yeah.
But it's just not going to happen because it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be, okay, if it's big, it's a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
If it's small enough to take down a goat, it's going to be a Chupacabra. If it flies, it's like a Thunderbird or something like that, or Mothman or Man-Bat or whatever.
Yeah.
If it shrieks in the woods, it's what?
A Wendigo.
It's like, but there's other stuff, man. And like the idea that I think goblins and other small, like vicious creatures that are out there live in caves and moon-eyed people and stuff, I think they're just getting off easy. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
mistaken identity or something.
That's two things. Like, because when you were saying that, the first thing I thought of was like, some of the New Mexico spooky that has always bugged me was like our first camping trip when we went from Jemez to basically me pointing on a map, and it turns out we were camping in a place that was originally called Dark Lobo Canyon.
Yeah. Which
translates into Dark Wolf Canyon, which is horrifying.
Well, that was going to be the next thing when you see something you can't explain.
Yeah. But then
Skinwalker.
Yeah. But then, out here, nobody's focusing on why was that once called Dark Lobo Canyon? Why does nobody camp there? And here in like Western North Carolina and, Tennessee and South Carolina, it's moon-eyed people and nobody talks about how scary those things look.
Yeah.
It's all
well, you have one description. They just look like regular, short, pasty white people with big eyes.
Yeah.
Where the eyes, they can't stand the sun. But then in some of the native descriptions, that's not what they looked like at all.
Yeah.
They looked like almost like goblins, and they were scary looking. And, and that kind of goes to if you're a bunch of humans and you're chilling, doing the human thing back then, and you see monsters coming out of the caves where you live, mm-hmm. Are you going to befriend them? Or are you just going to go on, these things we need to attack and or kill?
This is kind of like that uncanny valley conversation we had.
Yeah, and it's like every monster you would ever see in every horror movie, you've got to kill it.
Yeah.
That's the rules.
Or defend or, against.
Nobody wants to be friends with it. And then that seemed to change, and it's like, with like Harry and the Hendersons, right? Let's be more accepting of the monsters.
But why is it okay that Bigfoot and certain types of aliens, because we all know what we're talking about here, are friendly, but other things, not only are they not friendly, but we just don't give them the acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And why is the Chupacabra the go-to? Is it because it's only 2 to 3 feet or 4 feet tall?
I don't know.
Or is it just because we just discredit it?
It's weird.
But
I don't know. I think that we're just trying to be more open and accepting of everything. Right? With the whole shift, like we talked about Fire in the Sky with Travis Walton.
Yeah.
That was freaking scary. But then now all of a sudden you've got like E.T. and Close Encounters and, aliens are love and light and all that. I don't think that's the case. Bigfoot's like Harry and the Hendersons. Oh, he's a nice guy. And then you don't hear about the stories of hikers being ripped in half and stuffed in trees. Right? And the same thing with hunters and all this other crazy stuff. And I think a lot of us just gotten to the point where...
okay, so...
And then it what it reminds me of? It's the same thing we've talked about this in the past, and like 3 or 4 podcasts ago, where people in like Yellowstone or a state park or a national park are like, ooh, let me get out and take a picture of this giant water buffalo, and they're freaking shocked when this thing, he yeets them across the street.
I mean, bison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever, man. And they're like, let me walk right up to it and try to get a selfie with this thing. And this thing, like it did that lady, yeeted her across the road.
Well, I think
it's like these animals are dangerous, right?
Yeah, I think a better, a good analogy would be like how the younger generation of people who are into cryptids, and I'm talking about people younger than us. Like I'm in all these groups like spooky cryptid posting and stuff like that, where Mothman is a joke mostly.
Yeah, he's like a little, happy, like a cuddly kind of.
He's either happy and cuddly, or everybody's taking pictures of his behind on the sculpture.
Yeah.
And it's like you're not afraid at all of this creature, because it seems like there's so much light has been made of him that you're just not afraid. Whereas the original reports, I mean, these people were so terrified, they hopped in their vehicle and went straight to the police.
Well, it's the same thing with like the whole, Kelly Hopkinsville thing, where these people were terrified. They were under siege. They were under siege. They shot up their own house.
Yeah.
But it's like when you read the story or hear about the story now, and people they look same thing, they're nice and cuddly and that kind of thing. I don't know. It just seems to be weird. I don't know, because if I was out in the woods and we seen goblins running up on us and stuff, I'm not going to hang around.
Oh heck no.
And try to be friendly with it and stuff, because what happens. That's how you become part of the missing 411.
Yeah, pretty much.
You're in a park, or you're out there next to the Mammoth Cave system or something like that. Like, oh, look at the little goblin thing coming in. You're going to go up and hang out with it. It's going to pull you off and eat you.
Yeah, and going back to that whole like uncanny valley, that whole comparison, like the human reaction to things that look kind of human and not human, I've got it real bad. So anything like alien gray or goblin looking, I'm gone.
Yeah.
Nope, can't deal with it.
That seems to be, I think, the only real criteria these days as to whether or not you should kill monsters.
Really?
Is that they eat people. You know what I mean? If you think about it, it's like, look at like native lore. If whatever it was ate humans, they all got together and said, it's out. We got it's gone.
Yeah. Like the giants.
That's it. Yeah. Like the giants would eat people, or some of the giants would eat people. They had to be basically extinct.
Mm-hmm.
Extinctinated,
Exterminated.
Yeah, and is that the only thing that would basically change things if we run across or had some kind of first contact like situation where it's public and stuff, is like, everything is great until you find out they eat people, and then we have to band together and
from a non-cryptid standpoint, we do take that position with like the alligators in Florida. Remember those monster pythons that were coming out of like Southeast Asia?
Yeah.
Same thing. We were,
we're fine until they eat them.
Yeah.
Eat somebody, and then we got to go out and kill it.
It started off as a sacred python, and then once it ate 1 or 2 neighbors, the whole village got together and took it down and called a wildlife expert, that type of stuff. So I think that's a good criteria right there.
Well, yeah. It's just kind of, I don't know. It's just sort of strange. The whole thing has sort of gotten so, the hard edges of these things have been rounded off. And it's like when we talk about, like the Bell Witch, right? Kate the Bell Witch.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talked about, with the Witch of Pungo a little bit, the stories I read and was told in elementary school were a lot more hard-edged than what you hear now. It's like those edges have been sort of rolled off.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways, things like that, just in general, are probably not good. You can't round every bad situation off to where it's like, well, because I think that just takes away our instinctual edge. And if you see something that's, has the possibility of giving you great and bodily harm, your instinct should be either fight or flight, or stay away from it in general. And I think our instincts in general with all this stuff is getting rounded off.
Is it our instincts or our standards? Because
they go hand in hand when it comes to something like this.
So, like, you know, going back to the Witchapungo, you had, you know, a level of education on the Witchapungo.
Yeah, like she cursed people. Yeah. She caused deaths. I mean, it was a serious thing.
And then my level was a little watered down. And then your kids' education of the Witchapungo was way lighthearted.
Yeah.
My education, I'm sitting here trying to think why people from your generation and like even my parents' generation, why they were so afraid of a witch that rode around in an eggshell and basically stalked people in her flying eggshell.
Yeah.
And that made no sense to me at the time.
Well,
so did our standards change, or
even the story, if I remember correctly, and I may be wrong, it's been a while, of when they were trying to dunk her to prove, you know, if you're a witch and you float, that sort of thing, giving her the impossible trial test.
Yeah.
Like lightning struck, you know, and killed her, injured. It was a thing, you know, and it was not like she's just this forceful lady who is basically going through property battles.
Yeah.
You know, they were like, she was an evil, malicious type person, and then pretty much what had brought all that on was them taking land and property and things like that, and she cursed them all, and they did suffer fates, and it had this bad thing, and they buried her above ground and all this other crazy stuff. So why would you do all that stuff if she's just, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just something that I was just thinking about.
So from Witchapungo to Chupacabra. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of turned into the same thing. You know, people see the witch. If you see the original rendition of the Chupacabra looking like the little alien reptilian sort of reptoid, you know, shape thing cruising around there, you would probably not want to try to be friends with it. You would probably want to try to kill it.
Yeah.
And then in the Southwest, it's kind of turned into this, you know, four-legged dog almost like animal that you really are not too scared of.
But you also want to get rid of, because if it is a mangy coyote, you don't want it near your livestock.
Well, yeah, of course, but it's like it's just sort of a different thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stories and stuff that you hear back in the olden days were to keep people in line, and it just sort of changes, and it just makes me wonder if over time, the scary stories that have been told about, you know, things that go bump in the night don't really have the same sort of hard edge to them anymore, because there's other stuff to worry about. So how much of this is really like parents trying to keep hold of their kids or protect the community against doing something crazy? So if that's not an issue to be scared of the dark anymore, because these days in modern society, we're not too worried about the dark, what do you use to scare people and keep them in line now?
Yeah. Because
a lot of the stories that we see are curious. You know, you're like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and read about Chupacabra. There's no fear involved. I'm like, oh man, there's very few things I think that still really give people real fear.
Yeah.
That would keep you in line. Like if we were camping somewhere and somebody said, don't go over there because there are skinwalkers over there and they've done this, I would probably not go over there. You know, but I think if you, in the same sort of breath, if you're like, don't go over there because there's Bigfoots over there, I think the majority of us would want to go take a look.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm like, oh, I'll just peek a little bit. You know, I'll offer him some fruit. You know, give him a little treat. Maybe we'll be all right. You know, I don't know. It's just kind of like, I don't know where this whole thing is going in general. Like even UFO stuff. UFO stuff would be scary. You have an invader coming from another place, you know, trying to do whatever it is, and you got to, you know, it's not that way anymore. People like would welcome all this and a lot of this with open arms. Oh, they're just trying to be nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think so. Who knows? Anyway, that's pretty much all I want to say about it. It sort of led me down a rabbit hole of trying to figure out, you know, what's what.
Yeah.
You know, and then I don't know. I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a second and take a quick break so we can play your little commercial for Audible, because Audible is awesome. And when you can give somebody an Audible gift, right? You can give like your friend, hey, you should sign up for Audible and get a couple audiobooks. Maybe you got somebody out there that might enjoy that.
Yeah.
Won't cost you anything.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to do that. We'll be right back. You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast.
Yep. Audible is audio entertainment that entertains, educates, and inspires. For you, listeners of CreepGeeks Podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/cheapgeek. Again, that's audibletrial.com/cheapgeek for your free audiobook.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so in our previous podcast episode, we talked about coming up on episode number 200.
Yeah.
Right? And we said, we're going to have a contest. And we said, we'll be choosing a lucky listener to receive a CreepGeeks podcast swag pack. And you were like, that's amazing. So how do you win? Right? And I was going to go listen to the podcast. And if you answer our mystery question, you can submit your answer via our email at contact@creepgeeks.com. And then you're like, what? And then we'll randomly choose the lucky winner and send them some sweet, sweet swag.
Yeah.
And then we'll announce the episode, or announce the winner in episode number 201.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're still going to do that, and that's what we're going to do right now. So here's the question. And just so you know, that's right. We waited for 45 minutes to give you the question. Well, if we put the question right up front, they'd be like, got the question, I'm out.
Okay.
And it's a hard question.
Yeah.
You have to have listened to our podcast in the recent past to get the answer to the question.
All right.
And I'm not saying like, because we have 200 episodes. I'm saying maybe 10 episodes back. We've said it multiple times. So for people that really listen, here's the question. I wish I had some like music or something to make it super.
Would you stop?
So go ahead. I don't want to read the question. You read the question.
So the question is,
ready? Go.
how does Greg think he'll capture one of the Brown Mountain lights?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the answer.
Okay. Now, if you know the answer, don't post it on our Facebook page. Don't post it in the group. Don't tweet it. Don't comment on our Instagram. We want you to email the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we need you to email it to contact@creepgeeks.com.
Like the 5 people listening to the podcast just instantly clicked away.
Now, should we really announce it at 201, or should we give them a little more time than episode 201?
No.
Okay.
It's like a week.
Yeah. Okay. And well, some people might not be caught up on our podcast episodes.
I can't worry about everybody.
Okay.
I'm one man.
Okay.
Got a lot of stuff going on. We're videotaping events for people.
All right.
We're out and about. We're going to darkened parking lots and watching wonderful documentaries. Trying to do live streams. Trying to figure out if we're actually going to turn our van into a mobile podcast studio.
Mm-hmm.
We got stuff going on.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, guys, you only have till episode 201 to get this question.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We're going to announce the winner in 201.
All right.
Very nice. Now, if nobody gets it,
yeah,
then I don't know what we'll do. So it's kind of hard to say.
Okay.
So, all right. So anyway, moving back into the podcast.
Yeah.
I put this article in here for us to talk about as news. It's a story, only because we know one of the people that's referenced in this book.
Okay.
You know what the name of the book is?
What?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. It's basically, okay. So the quest to find the Russian Bigfoot is done by Richard Freeman, right? And this is an article written by Nick Redfern, who we've waved to. We haven't really talked to him, which is funny.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you about that one time I waved at the governor of New Mexico? No, it was the mayor. The mayor of Albuquerque,
Yeah.
New Mexico, was in our building where I worked at one time. And I waved at him all crazy, like I knew him. And he waved back all crazy, too. And the look on his face was he was trying to figure out who I was. Caught him completely off guard. And I went back to doing what I had to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty funny. I don't know why I did it. I chuckled at it for a while. Anyway, so Richard Freeman, right, he wrote this book, and he has a huge list of his expeditions where he basically talks about cryptids, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's in search of cryptids.
Adventures in Cryptozoology.
Right. That's the name of the book.
Yeah.
So it's Richard's work in the field of what we might call the Russian Bigfoot, or the Almasty, right, is what Nick Redfern's focusing on, and says the legendary Russian equivalent of Bigfoot is kind of what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
And in 2008, he spent significant time in Russia trying to find the Russian Bigfoot. And with all that said, it goes on to say, here's what he said about the matter of the beasts. And he tells us that Russia, or the one-time Soviet Union, always seem to be one step ahead of the West scientifically. And he said they did, after all, get the first satellite in orbit, the first man in space, and they seem to be forward-thinking and less hidebound and arrogant in the 1950s. Now, here's where I would completely and 100% disagree with Nick Redfern.
Mm-hmm.
Because they wanted to prove that they were ahead of us, when in reality they weren't ahead of us, as they continue to use the same 1950s space technology today and had very little advancements.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really just a smoke show. I mean, take a look at any of the stuff they had from the 50s. You know, and I've spent some time in Russia, and I've spent some time looking at their technology, and it's like, we were worried about these guys for what?
Yeah.
And the good thing one of the things that Russians were good at, and still are good at, is not disclosing their failures. So, just in general, even with the space program. But, okay, so he talks about, Russia being ahead of us, that kind of thing. It's like, okay. And then they also talk about the interest in the Himalayan Yeti, which was at its peak during the 50s. And they pretty much had written off the idea of the Bigfoot, the Russian Bigfoot. But the Soviets did not. And so they had some people who were like Russian polymath, Dr. Boris Parishnev, to consider the existence. And unlike most Western scientists, he thought the creature might be a relic hominid, a relative of the ancestors of man rather than a great ape.
Okay.
Which that actually makes more sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So anyway, he says, here I must personally disagree with on the nature of the Yeti. But that's beside the point. Here, scientists have acted great interest in the subject, and he found that there were many sightings. This person found out there were many sightings of the superficially similar creatures in the Soviet Union. And that's Richard talking about what he'd read from Brezhnev, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about sightings and things that occurred in the Caucasus. How do you say it? Yeah, Caucasus. The Pamirs, the Tinshin, and other reports of basically hairy men-like creatures, variously known as the Almastis, had different names like Almastis, Almazdev, Ghoul, and all these other names, and some of the encounters that they had. And they seem to be smaller and more man-like than the classic giant Yeti of the Tibet and Himalayas. And these could indeed be relic hominids. And he went on to say that and this is Richard, basically said in 1958, the USSR Academy of Sciences, under the guy's initiative, Brezhnev, right, set up a special commission on the snowman question and launched it as an expedition into the Pamirs.
Mm-hmm.
On the expedition, didn't really find anything. It's like during its 3 years, the commission amassed a huge amount of information on sightings, both modern and historical, and it kind of goes back throughout time, and a lot of this we don't even really know. But they gave it the name, right, of Homo troglodytes.
It's just the name troglodytes is so associated in my mind with simple man.
Yeah, like mouth breathers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're a mouth breather out there, as I have been the past couple of days because of sinuses and all this other crazy stuff, and we're not talking about you. But it kind of goes, okay, so like when we were talking about Chupacabra a minute ago, here we're looking at these smaller beasts that have been attributed as being one thing, and then the giant Yeti, or the snowman, as they call them, as being something else. And so those are two obvious descriptors there, like we have with the Chupacabra, right? One being more reptilian, the other one being more dog-like. And it sort of like, okay, sort of ties in together. So they talk about the snowman, finding the snowman. The commission was abolished, and this guy continued to put out information, and none of his books have been translated to English, even though in Russian his books are rare. Like they only had like 180 of these books, right? So they had these small runs, and so they have like the information that you'd want to get for this guy's research is pretty sparse. And so, but when you look at what he did, and it sort of spawned what he's calling the second generation of researchers.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about Bortsev and Bortseva and Pushkarov and Maya Bayakova.
Yeah.
And then Makarov and Trakengertz and then, Pachinko. But the guy that we know, which was the reason why I read this article in the entire first place, is Igor.
Yeah.
Igor Bortsev's in there.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Or Igor, however you want to pronounce it. I called him Igor. He was fine with that. And we met him once, and we met him like 5 or 6 different times and talked to him multiple times about Bigfoot. And honestly, I think some of the reports that they've had and some of the information they came across with kind of goes to them sort of looking at the creature as being more of an animalistic creature and less like Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah.
And so, he takes it very serious. And remember when we went to, anyway, there were some people talking and he was giving a presentation and he wanted to make sure that everybody that attended the presentation and his lecture on Bigfoot was able to hear. And so when he heard those people talking, remember, he got angry old man on him and stuff. And anyway, so it's just kind of, they have a more nuts and bolts way of doing research, I think, in a lot of ways than we actually do here in the U.S.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, they're more boots on the ground, And so 51 years after the Snowman Commission was disbanded, the Siberian government set up a research institute, which is dedicated to the study of the relic hominids. And then they talk about the administration in Western Siberia said that they're organizing an institute or a scientific center that would be a logical continuation of the research into the Yeti. And it also talks about how Richard, who wrote the book, Richard Freeman, is still someone who's very active in the expeditions, aside, of course, from right now because of the pandemic. And so the point of this is that we knew Igor and we understood that the Russians were doing their investigations and stuff. And if you look at the Diltov Pass massacre and all that, they recently had came out and said that they were basically killed by an avalanche. Some kind of natural event. I remember it was like they left their tents because they had to because of an avalanche or something like that.
Doesn't make sense.
Right. It doesn't explain tongues being ripped out. It doesn't explain the fear. It doesn't explain the grievous bodily injury that occurred to these people. And they said, well, they were hung up in this avalanche and they got beat to pieces. It was some non-explanation. It was almost like, when people heard, oh, well, Roswell was weather balloons. You're like, I don't believe that for a second kind of a thing. But, yeah, I just thought that was kind of neat. It's like, oh, there's Igor. And there's some videos of Igor when he talks about some of the expeditions he's been on. And the thing about Igor is that he's been doing this for a while, and he's not a youngster by any means.
No.
Yeah, so if you talk about like him being like one of the new sort of second generation or second sort of iteration of researcher, he's in his 70s. So we're talking about this sort of thing started really in earnest for them with the commission like in the 60s.
Yeah. So they've had that dedicated interest or that.
Yeah, for real, this is legit. We're going to research this kind of thing, not like we kind of have here where they're like, oh, you're a scientist and you're researching Bigfoot. We're not going to give you the funding. It's like, no, go find out what this is.
But we've had those opportunities here in the United States. In fact, we talked about it on the podcast, how a certain university gave a certain professor money to legitimately research stuff, and unfortunately that didn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, this is like the government.
Yeah.
And they sort of, started talking about different things. And we're talking like the Darwin Museum in Moscow. Looking into Yeti and that sort of thing. Now, Yeti did become popular in the 50s, and it became a thing.
Yeah.
Abominable Snowman, the Yeti. And I think it was Gregory Peck who allegedly bought a Bigfoot hand or a foot, a Yeti, Bigfoot hand or foot, and had it in, or Jimmy Stewart. Maybe it was Jimmy Stewart. And he had it like in his collection for a long time. And then, it's illegal to take Yeti parts out of the country.
Really?
Yeah. So, I think it was Jimmy Stewart. It's kind of a weird thing. So, I don't know, but I'm kind of thinking we should check out his book, though. adventures in cryptozoology.
Yeah, now I'm trying to figure out what celebrity had a Yeti hand.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure it was either Gregory Peck or Jimmy Stewart. I have to kind of look.
And no, this is not the contest question.
No.
So, yeah, I don't know. I would like for there to be a dedicated, more sincere approach to some of this phenomenon, whether it's cryptids or aliens and things like that. But it seems like the American translation or the American process for that, and what comes to mind is certain alien and UFO organizations. I don't feel that legitimacy is there where the federal government's like fully behind it.
Yeah, it's the credibility is not there.
Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah. Jimmy Stewart and the Yeti hand of Bangladesh.
Yes.
It's an artifact.
He
in a nutshell.
Smuggled it.
He bought it, and then he probably put it in his carry-on. I didn't check that stuff back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a supposed artifact that was found in Nepal and purported to be from the Yeti or abominable snowman. Mountain climber Peter Byrne smuggled it out of the country with some help from his friend, and then famed actor Jimmy Stewart was the one that supposedly helped him. DNA testing later revealed to be a human hand.
Oh, gosh.
So now it went from being something to be kind of cool to that's kind of gross.
Yeah.
So they come across some like random dude, like maybe a hiker or something like that, and they, like, you know, it looked like a large human hand. It was covered with crusted black broken skin.
What website are you on?
KnowledgeNuts.com.
Oh, I'm on Atlas Obscura, which does attribute to certain Nepalese traditions of basically letting some of their monks mummify on their own. So maybe it's just a lot more commonly accepted
Little monk hand.
To basically trade mummy parts.
Yeah. Yeah, it could have been a mountain gorilla.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just kind of a thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of neat. But we know Igor. I thought it was kind of nice. Talked to him a little bit. And he was one of the things that he wasn't too fond on, if I remember, and it was, granted, it was kind of hard to understand, you know, his thoughts towards what he was just kind of hard to understand sometimes. He get really enthusiastic, and you couldn't tell if he was angry, you know what I mean, or just really enthusiastic.
Passionate.
Yeah, because we talked to him a little bit. But one of the things that he wasn't too particularly fond on was he didn't necessarily like some of the reports of structures.
Yeah.
And he said that, you know, a lot of them aren't structures. Like what he would inference to like legit Bigfoot structures.
Yeah, like the reports that come out of certain parts of the Pacific Northwest and even the Southwest. He does not attribute a lot of those to the Sasquatch.
Yeah.
And
it kind of, because some of them, you know, that he was, because the one thing I remember him saying, because I asked him about that, I said, what do you think about some of the structures? And he was like, the location doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
In other words, if you were a Sasquatch, why would you put your structure there when just regular people could walk out and find it? You think it'd be better.
Yeah.
You know, and he did say something about underground and then just kind of walked off.
Yeah. Especially
he had to go do his conference, his lecture series.
I think one of his arguments or reasoning was like, if these things, you know, are trying to shelter in place or what have you, it would make more sense in certain territories where the stick structures have been found to just go into a cave.
Or be underground, yeah.
Yeah. So why would there be a stick structure out in the open 200 feet from a trail?
Yeah, why do you need a stick structure?
Yeah.
I don't know. So I just thought it was kind of cool. So anyway, we talked to him, knew a little bit, and I did. It seems like a lot of information about Russia is coming out where they've been investigating all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
You know, with the whole UFO and psychic stuff and all that. They were really into it. But I do wonder how much of that was really just sort of an okey doke from the spy times in America. You know, the whole Cold War was all about espionage and all that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of makes you wonder if really it was sort of like, let's go ahead and release some information about how the U.S. has a secret spy program where we're basically using, you know, psychometry and things like that to find secret military bases and things like that. And then the spy takes the news, right back to the handler and like, man, they're hunting all our facilities and they're using psychics. And then they start doing it too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, the Diltov incident though, I don't know, man. There were some pretty horrific pictures and stuff. You know, they went on a trip, like this group of college kids, and allegedly got ripped apart by something. Mm-hmm. And there's even supposed to be photos of like the monster in the woods looking at them.
Okay.
That they found afterwards, after they found the missing kids. Like head bashed in, tongues ripped out, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they found the film because one of the people was taking pictures. And when he developed the film and you zoomed it into the background, there was a large creature, or what could be a large creature, standing there looking at him. Now, if these beasts are real and they're highly territorial,
yeah,
maybe they decided, you know, they didn't want these kids camping on their territory. Never know.
Okay.
So, something like that. It's kind of scary. You trying to find pictures?
No, I'm trying to figure out if that's from the same website that basically has been debunked. So.
Just look. You should look on Snopes. Snopes will tell you, right? Yeah. I don't know. That's about all I got.
Okay.
Yep. So answer the question. Win the contest. Get some swag from us. And our swag is actually pretty good. At least I think so.
I think we'll put an Instagram
now, here's the thing.
picture up soon.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. And if you don't want to go through the arduous process of trying to answer one simple question, tell you a little dirty secret. Well, it's probably not dirty. I don't know why I said that, but tell you a little secret. You can basically we give our swag away to our patrons like every month.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's good. It's good stuff. All right. That's all I got. I'm about done.
Okay.
Because I'm going to go find some pecan pie.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in to this episode. Questions, comments, concerns, contact at creepgeeks.com or give us a call. That's going to be 575-208-4025. Just like last episode, I'm still encouraging folks to join our Creep Geeks Facebook group. If you haven't already liked the page, Creep Geeks Podcast, go ahead and do that, but we are actually looking for more members to our group. We share fun stories, memes, lighthearted stuff, but it's also where we take show suggestions and try to get more conversation from our listeners, especially if they've had weird experiences or they've got questions that might make good podcast topics. So check out the Facebook group and hit that join button. And I'm trying to think of what else to say.
No, that's really about it.
Okay.
This is kind of one of those podcasts where we found some stuff we thought this is interesting. Like,
Yep.
Let's give people a break from all the shopping and the aggravation and just the general malaise that occurs from Turkey Day into Christmas.
Oh, and stay tuned this week. We are going to be posting some new stickers for the holiday season.
Ooh, very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. All right. So anyway, that's about it.
All right.
So be sure to turn in. Know what I mean? 201.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, so there you go. You guys be careful. See you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.